Hey, if you missed this last week at our Northridge campuses, we talked about the sixth miracle in the book of John. We talked about when Jesus healed the man born blind. And we've talked all along about the fact that these miracles just keep getting crazier and crazier. Jesus has healed some people, but honestly, this one is really impressive because this guy's born blind. There's a connection, there's a neural connection that's not there in this guy. And not only that, he missed the developmental period that it takes as babies are born. They begin to experience life. Their vision gets better and better as those neural pathways open up. And none of that had happened and none of it was there. So when Jesus healed this guy, he's literally creating in this guy something that's not there in order to heal him. And so it's a really cool story. But the thing about this account is what makes it cool is not really so much the miracle, as cool as it is, it's really the reaction to the miracle. And if you haven't read this, listen, people say, the Bible's boring. You got to read John chapter 9. It's hilarious, the conversation that this guy has with the various different parties after he gets healed. And so that's what we really zeroed in on. Is those conversations afterwards. Because what happened is this guy gets healed, people begin to say, hey, you can't be the guy who was formerly a blind beggar. That can't possibly be you. And he's walking around going, no, it's me. And then he gets called into the talk to the Pharisees. The Pharisees want to find out what's going on. They're very concerned. He got healed on the Sabbath. That's not allowed. You know, they're man-made rules that they added to what God said in the Ten Commandments about the Sabbath. And so really there were three different reactions to this guy's healing in the passage, and they're all really, really interesting. The first one is the Pharisees. The Pharisees' philosophy was, this doesn't fit my way of thinking, so I'm not going to accept the evidence. I just won't entertain it. And it's interesting in our culture today, we really see that all throughout our culture when it comes to Christianity. Really, our culture has decided that 100% of the time a person should do whatever they feel, whatever they desire, and they should never listen to like, God says this, so therefore I'm going to live that way, even if I don't feel like I should, even if I don't feel like I want to. And so what we're doing now as a culture is we're trying to push Christianity totally out of everything because nobody wants to submit to somebody else's agenda. Because if they look in the Bible and it says, hey, this is how you're supposed to live, and that doesn't feel right, or that feels not as loving as something else, or it doesn't match up with my personal views, people are kind of picking and choosing what they want to believe from the Bible, or just throwing it all out altogether because it doesn't fit their way of thinking. And so we see a lot of that in our culture today. Maybe that's been your struggle, is you look in the Bible and you say, yeah, I really struggle with Christianity because I don't like what it says right here. And we'll get back to that in just a second. And then his parents actually kind of threw the guy under the bus. They're standing in front of the Pharisees. The Pharisees are really putting the screws to him. Is this your son? Was this guy actually born blind? How is it that he can see? And they really don't want to commit. They say, well, it is our son, and yeah, he was born blind, but how he can see now, we don't have any idea. We don't want to talk about it. He's of age. You ask him. Because they didn't want to identify with Jesus. They didn't want to link up with Jesus. They really felt like if identifying with Jesus was going to cost them anything, they didn't want to do it. And so that was kind of their reaction because they were afraid that the Pharisees were going to throw them out of the synagogue, which was their really being a part of society, was being part of the synagogue. And so you were really kind of excommunicated from society if you weren't a part of the synagogue. So these people weren't willing for a relationship with Jesus to cost them anything at all. And maybe that's been your struggle as well. And then you got the man who's born blind, and his attitude is hey, Jesus changes lives. I'll give him everything. I'll just give him everything. And so that was his reaction. There's no amount of sacrifice. There's no amount of, it costing me something that matters if I can have a relationship with this guy who changes lives. And that was his experience. And let me just kind of sum it all up with our bottom line, which is really brought from the next chapter, John chapter 10, verse 10, where Jesus says, I have come that they may have life and that they might have it to the full. The question is do you believe that? Because the Pharisees didn't believe it. They didn't believe that knowing Jesus was worth it. They didn't believe that giving up control of their lives was worth knowing Jesus, that was the fullest life. And again, maybe that's been your struggle. You think, well, to follow Jesus, I got to give up control of my life. that's not the fullest way to live life. Well, you don't believe John chapter 10, verse 10, and that's okay. Admit that. Just admit it. I don't believe it. I think it's a fuller use of my life would be to do what I want. That may be where you stand. Or his parents didn't believe that John chapter 10, verse 10 was true, that the fullest use of their life would be to be willing to even be ostracized from the synagogue. They thought, well, I don't know if we can trust that. But this guy, the blind guy, said, you know what? It would absolutely be the fullest use of my life, no matter what it cost me. Not the easiest use of my life, but the fullest use of my life, to give my life to Christ. He believed it, and because of it, he lived an exciting, joyful, full life, because he believed, John chapter 10, verse 10, that Christ says, I've come to give you life and give it to the full.